You ever had one of those projects where everything goes amazing until you get to the very end and then you realize there's a major flaw in the design? Yeah, I might have done that on this project. And I left it in the video. That's coming up. Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Reach. This is Weaver Leather Supply. Today, not only are we going to be taking a look at the new basic tooling kit from Weaver, but we're going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to show you my technique for extreme lifting, and there's a major flaw in the project today, and I left it all in the video. Now, I left it in the video because that's a big part of this craft. Challenges pop up, we make mistakes, and you've got to figure out how to adjust or give up on the project, one of the two. So I wanted to leave it in the project, show you how I made some adjustments on this one, and hopefully it'll be something that you can learn from. You can learn from my mistake. So first, let's take a look and see what all comes with the basic tooling kit from Weaver. It comes with a basic swivel knife, a smooth bevel, a pear shader, a seeder, a camo tool, a veiner, and a backgrounder. So before we jump into the project, let's talk about the giveaway real quick. We're gonna be giving away this specific tooling kit. It's the one that I used to do the project today. It's the beginner kit from Weaver, and the only thing that you have to do to be entered into the contest is to leave a comment in the comment section below with your recommendation for a video that you would like to see us do. Either on tooling or airbrushing. You have 1 week to leave your comment. After that, we'll pick a winner at random and we'll announce it in one of the upcoming videos. I'll give you a reminder at the end of the video to make sure that you don't forget to leave a comment. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and jump into the project. So because we're talking about the beginner kit from Weaver, obviously I wanted to do a project that even a novice can do, and you only need that kit to tackle the project. So I thought it'd be fun to take on a pair of sunflower earrings. Thing is, I didn't realize I built a flaw into the design from the very beginning, but we'll talk about that more in a little while. Now, if you need some help with the different techniques that we're gonna be using today, that's gonna be the swivel knife, backgrounding, and matting. We covered all of those in videos recently. We'll put a link to those videos in the description below so you can go brush up on those before you tackle the project. Any of the tools, the leather, any of that stuff that you see in the project today, you can get all of that from Weaver. The only thing that we're gonna be using as far as tools go is gonna be the basic tooling kit, a modeling spoon, and the Deerfoot modeling tool. And I'll show you how to use these if you're not familiar with. All right, so let's go ahead and knock out the prep work. We need to strop the blade, we need to wet the leather, we need to tape the back, and we need to trace the design onto the leather. Y'all let me know in the comment section below if it would be helpful if I did a video on those particular steps. I know they're very basic and they're very entry level, but we've got a lot of people who are brand new to the craft. We were all there at one point, and if those are things that would be helpful for me to talk about and do a quick video on, I'm happy to do that. So let me know in the comment section below. Once you got the blade stropped, we can go ahead and start cutting in the petals. There's a few things that you want to be aware of as we go through and do that. Number one, don't take the cuts all the way to the edge of the earring. Number two, don't connect the cuts. We don't want them to intersect. And a tip for you would be to start at the blunt end of the cut and move towards the tapered end. So one thing I want you to notice, look how much bigger that piece of leather is than the size that the earrings are ultimately going to end up. Now there's two reasons that I do this. There's a lot of advantages to doing this, but the two main reasons for this project, number one, it gives me something to hold on to versus those little bitty earrings. And number two, we've got the design going all the way to the edge of the earrings. Now if we were to cut these out and then bevel to the edge and that type thing, it's really going to distort the edges of the leather. But by leaving it in the leather and then cutting it out towards the end, it gives us the best shot of that not happening. Now that we've got it cut in, we can move over to beveling, and I'm going to encourage you to take your bevel and rock it up on that leading edge. What that's going to do is it's going to focus the downward force of your maul into the smallest area possible. That's going to give us a nice crisp edge, and it's going to give us a narrow shadow. If we lay it flat, you're going to get a really wide shadow around your beveling, and that's not what we're looking for. So rock it up on that leading edge as you're doing your beveling. You can see that I'm bouncing around the design quite a bit, and that's because I'm looking for the lines that I can bevel from the angle that I'm currently working. Now the downside to this is it's pretty easy to lose track of which side of the line that you should bevel, and then you kind of end up with a mess. So if you're not confident enough to bounce around the design, that's perfectly fine. Just work one flower petal at a time, spin the project as much as you need to. Next, we're gonna grab our cedar, put seeds around the edge of the flower center. There's two tricks to this. Number one, get a nice firm strike on the stamp so you get a good impression. And number two, you want to butt them up against each other without overlapping. Now this is not a difficult step, but if you've never done it before, you might want to grab a piece of scrap leather and practice a little bit first. Now that we've got it cut in and beveled, we're gonna go back and we're gonna cut in the outline of the design. With small projects like this, and especially ones where we take the design all the way up to the edge of the project, I like to cut in the edges of it after it's been beveled. And that gives us the best shot at the tooling, not distorting the edges of the project. So once you got the edges cut in, you can go ahead and grab your stylus and we're gonna mark the background areas with a dot. Now, if you've been in leathercraft for a little while, you could probably skip this step. It's definitely optional, but if you're new, it can be really helpful to go ahead and mentally and physically mark those background areas so that you don't end up backgrounding the wrong thing. Now that we know where we're gonna be working, let's go ahead and grab our backgrounder and start in one of the larger sections. Now, just in case you haven't seen it, we just released a video on the difference between backgrounding and matting. The major difference between the two is that backgrounding adds texture where matting compresses the leather. Now, the question is, how much do I compress the leather? Roughly as deep as you cut in the design. That's how far down you wanna go. Now that the backgrounding's done, let's go ahead and grab our pear shader and start adding some depth and shape to those petals. For the most part, the wide end of the pear shader is gonna work, but there's gonna be a few of them where we need to spin it around and use the narrow end. What we're gonna do is we're gonna lean it up on the end that we're using and we're gonna give it one firm strike, then continue to tap it as we walk it closer to the flower center. As you get closer to the flower center, lighten up on those strikes. This is gonna help the texture and the shape fade out as it gets closer to the center. Don't overwork the petals, just a little bit of shape is all we need. Now we're gonna get our swivel knife back out. We're gonna cut the crosshatch design into the center of the flower. One thing to keep in mind is that these cuts don't need to be deep. We just want them deep enough that the leather will open up and hold on to the antique that we're gonna apply in some of the later steps. So at this point, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna use my modeling spoon. I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna put that shading in manually. But by doing that, it essentially removed or muted my decorative cuts. So for you, I would suggest that you wait a few steps before putting those decorative cuts in there. So real quick, if you're finding the video helpful, do me a favor and click the thumbs up button. That tells Weaver, it tells me, and it tells YouTube that we're on the right track. It also helps the video spread to other leather crafters just like you. So enough of that, back to the project. So if you've ever watched any of the videos on my YouTube channel, the Leatherverse, you might know that I tend to leave the challenges and the problems in the videos so that you can see how others respond to and repair the mistakes that are made during the project. Because the reality is, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, there's still mistakes, there's still challenges that you have to respond to and repair. So I like to leave those in there so that you can see how I respond to them. It's not always the best solution, but it's the way that I would handle the situation given what I have. Well, this particular situation, I was looking at the earrings and I really thought that the flower center needed more definition. It needed more texture. So being limited by the basic tooling kit, I thought, well, I'm going to grab the camouflage tool and go around the inside of the flower center. Well, the reality is, as I did that, I really didn't like it. So at that point, I've got a decision. Am I going to correct it or am I going to leave it the way it is? What am I going to do? Well, I decided that I was going to grab my smooth beveler and again, go around the inside of the flower center. And really that got us the look that we were looking for. It removed the camouflage texture that I had added in previously, and it gave us a little bit of a domed shape to that flower center. So as you work in the center of a flower, it's not uncommon at all for you to lose a little bit of definition in that flower center. And that's what happened here. It's very common. And the easy solution to it is just to go back with your cedar or whatever you put the design in the middle and just go back over it and freshen those up. So this is a good time to do that if you're following along. Now, in my opinion, this is where it gets really fun because this is where we're going to start lifting the petals and really adding a lot of depth and dimension to them. And for that, we're going to use the Deerfoot modeling tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the inside curves. And I've got a rule. The deeper the curve, the deeper the lift. So what do I mean by that? Well, if it's a really shallow inside curve, the lift is going to be really subtle. If it's a deep, hard turn, then the lift is going to be really, really obvious. So how do we do that? So what we're going to do first is we're going to make sure that our Deerfoot is sharp. And the easiest way to do this is we're going to grab some high grit sandpaper and we're essentially going to strop it just like we would our swivel knife. The same rules apply. Don't roll it up on its edge. Just put it at a flat angle and drag it across the sandpaper until you get a nice edge. After that, you're going to strop it just like you would your swivel knife. So grab a piece of leather, put your jeweler's rouge on there, and strop it just like you would your swivel knife. So how do we do the actual lifting? Well, what we want to do is we want to take our Deerfoot and we want to go right up to that line that we created with the bevel, and we want to gently and slowly slide along that bevel line. Once we get to one of the curves, we're going to push in a little bit deeper. The key here is to go slow and let the tool do the work for us. We want these cuts to fade just like we would if we were using a swivel knife. So here's where we're going to pick up a little bit of speed, because if I don't, this video is going to be an hour long. But if I go through any of these too fast and you want me to do a video on these, put a comment in the comment section below and I'll add it to the list and we'll do our best to get you a video on it. But let's go ahead and jump in and finish up the project. The petals really need more dimension at the base, but we're using a basic tooling kit, so we don't have a center shader. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to grab our modeling spoon and we're going to use that to add depth to the base of the petal. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to start with a firm amount of pressure at the base, and then we're going to just drag it out. And as we drag towards the tip, we're going to lighten up on that pressure so that the shading fades out. Now we're going to apply the sealer. I'm using Tan Coat because I like how not only does it act as a resist for the antique step, but it also stiffens the leather, which is great for all that lifting that we just spent so much time doing. One thing I'd like to point out is how I'm using the spoon to remove the excess sealer from under the pedals. You're gonna let that dry for 20 minutes or so. Once it's not tacky to the touch anymore, you're ready to move on to antiquing. I'm gonna be using Fiebing's Tan for the antique, but the reality is any dark brown's gonna work. Just add a nice solid coat over the top of it. Make sure to get it down in all the cracks. You can remove it immediately. I use a paper towel, just wipe it right back off of it. Then I'm gonna use my spoon just like in the previous step and make sure I get any of the excess out from under those lifts that we created under the pedals. In some of the previous videos, we had people that said that they would love to see videos on how to paint on leather. So instead of giving you an in-depth tutorial of how I painted the project in this one, we're going to save that for the next video. For now, I'm just going to show you the highlights. That way we can really get into it in depth in the next video. The next few steps to finalize everything are pretty straightforward. We're going to cut out the design with a blade. We're going to bevel the edges front and back. We're going to slick the edges. We're going to dye the back and the sides dark color. I'm using chocolate brown. And then we need to seal the back and the sides with Tan Coat. So the bulk of the work is done, the project is almost done, and this is where it came off the rails. At this point, my wife walked into the workshop and just kind of curiously asked what it was that I was working on. And I held up the earrings and said, well, I'm working on a pair of sunflower earrings for Weaver. And her response was, and I quote, "I love them, they're beautiful, but they're huge." Well, not being a guy that wears earrings, it never even occurred to me that that might be a little big. Now, I know some people out there wear large earrings, but not everybody wants something that big. So this is where I had to adjust, right? This is where I had to either give up and redo it or find a different track to take with the project. So instead of making earrings, we made a keychain. So if you decide you want these to be earrings like the original plan was, all you really have to do is just print the pattern at about 50 to 75%, whatever works for you, and then you're good to go. You'll just have a smaller area to work in, that's all. So now that we're making a keychain instead of earrings, things just got a lot simpler for finishing it off. All you really have to do is just punch a hole at the top of both of the pieces and then run the deerskin lacing through it. This is turquoise deerskin lacing from Weaver. We'll put a link in the description, that way you know exactly what to get. But for me, I wanted to add a little bit of flash to it, so all I did is I went to the craft store, got some beads, a little bit of shine to put on there, ran some wax thread through it, tied that off at the top, and now you've got a beautiful custom-made keychain for whoever you want to give it to, or maybe for yourself. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, do us a favor and give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to put your recommendation in the comments section. That way you're entered to win the tooling kit from Weaver. I'll see you in the next video, and in the meantime, go make something amazing.